Hello Star Trek Fleet Commanders, this is 𝗂𝗵𝘁 from BHD8 Gaming. Now, this is not the video that I had planned on recording when I got up this morning. However, I do believe that this video is needed by the overall Star Trek Fleet Command community, so I'm going to go ahead and rush it out there. As such, it's going to have a lot lower production quality, a lot less edits than many of the videos that I put out there. So bear with me and understand that some of this may end up being a little messier than most videos. I have hastily scribbled together some notes that I will read from here, so if you see me taking a minute to go reorient myself, that is why. Keep in mind that this video is coming from one of the larger non-NDA signed content creators for the game Star Trek Fleet Command. It allows me to do a lot of speculation looking across the horizon that other content creators may not be able to do. However, that does mean that I might be wrong about some of the things I'm about to say in this video. I do feel like the greater community does need us to address the current state of Star Trek Fleet Command. This is coming from August 12th, 2022, so let's do it. So first off, who is 𝗂𝗵𝘁? This might be the first of my videos that you've ever seen. You may have been a longtime fan of the channel, but you may not understand the backstory for myself and this channel. My first videos actually came out about a year ago, and they were geared towards my own alliance, trying to help out players within my own alliance get a little bit better with the game, give us a competitive advantage over other alliances on our server. Eventually that grew to just people on our server because we had speculated that a server merge was in our future, and we wanted to be better prepared for the events that had been going on at that point in time, which were big scary server versus server events. The winner would keep their server, the loser would get merged into them, and those have gone away. So the original premise of the channel has kind of grown to instead help the free-to-play and low-to-play spenders all across the Star Trek Fleet Command community through the North American, European, and the Asia-Pacific servers. When I first started playing the game back in early 2021, I had cashed out a lot of my crypto money and threw it at the game to unlock some things like the North Star, the second research slot, the second build queue. I unlocked the 𝗂𝗶𝘶, things like that from a non-free-to-play manner. I've since gone back to help explain how to unlock those ships for people who are strictly free-to-play or who just pick up the battle pass like I pretty much do at this stage in the game. However, there are some things that I do believe in purchasing, mostly things you cannot get through playing the game the standard way. So it is things like the second and third now research slot, the second build slot, the second repair slot even has been pretty handy. The Shakedown Cruise Pack, Harrison when he came around, although he's a little bit easier to source now, still not easy, but easier. And that Section 31 skin that came around as well. Went ahead and picked those up. Anything that is right around $20 or so, not that big of a deal to pick up every now and again on this channel. That's kind of the way that we approach the game and try to help other people who are frugal Star Trek Fleet Commanders as well, that pretty much only pick up the Battle Pass, maybe a little bit more than that. We don't really pick up those $50 and $100 packs on this channel because many players that we speak to don't do that. So we try to keep this account as close to what a normal player of the game, what we consider a normal player of the game anyways, would be able to accomplish. So I did speak to other members of the community over the past several days, and I have told them, people who have told me that I make great videos and they hope that I keep doing this, I have told them that as long as this game is still worth playing, I will try to keep putting out content for it. Which brings me to this update 45 that we're at right now. It has a lot of people that are either completely outraged, ready to quit the game, or already have because of the new Mantis and Strike Team officers. The Strike Team officers, of course, being your Strike Team 𝘂𝗁, Strike Team 𝘂𝗶𝘁, and of course, Una, which is the biggest issue, and we'll touch on that briefly in a little bit. So what has so many players outraged is that the previous meta that was set in the game for almost, 4 years at this point has overnight basically been turned on its head, obliterated. Now, these new Strike Team officers are about all that you need for PvP as long as you have a decent battleship. Now, I too am pretty outraged with this. I stand with the rest of the community. However, I only have one foot out the door at this point, and I encourage other Star Trek Fleet Commanders to not head for those escape pods quite yet. The Mantis ship, if you didn't pick it up day one, you missed out on a lot of the event currency for this end of arc store that we have right now, which was a big deal. It really spun out a lot of people in the community. I completely disagree with the way that was originally framed. However, since then, there are some other people in the community, namely Revduce, 𝗂𝗀𝗶𝘁, and Ultimate DJs, who have been campaigning successfully to allow people who haven't picked up that ship the ability to complete those events, compete in those events, etc., and pick up more of the event currency. So thankfully that has been alleviated to some extent. But the big problem with this is that if you didn't purchase the ship for $100 right off the bat, the day it was released, you started missing out on those events pretty much immediately. Furthermore, there's not really been a free-to-play sourcing option stated at this time. We don't know how we're going to get this ship if you don't pay for it right now. The debuff ability of the ship is not really what's got many people outraged. It's kind of the inverse of the 𝘂𝗵𝘁. It reduces crit chance, crit damage, keeps you from being able to warp, and reduces the amount of shots that you fire in a round. It's a big deal from that standpoint, but it's still gated behind the resource you have to use in order to do that to player ships. It's very interesting. I don't think that's why people are that outraged. I'm not outraged because of the fact that the ship can do the debuff. It is really the hostile loop, as people are calling it, like you've got for your Vidar, where you have to go send it out to the space, farm a bunch of these hostiles, get the resources you need to continuously be investing in that ship to bring it up to higher and higher levels so you can start to benefit from the other things that you can do with it. With the Vidar, that is the faction store and reputation that you can get eventually once you finish building that Vidar. Same thing with this ship, you'll eventually get access to other things that are very valuable, specifically the Syndicate XP, which is a huge deal. That Syndicate level will help you tremendously if you invest in that across the course of your Star Trek Fleet Command play. That is really one of the things that has people the most upset. The other thing is that you've got Strange New Worlds officers that are gated behind this new refinery that only the Mantis provides. Those officers are not be-all, end-all. For many players, they have really niche hostile hunting capabilities. They don't really do a lot for PvP. Right now, those strike team officers are not in there. If they were in there, that would be a very different story for many people. They may end up in there in another month or so, depending on how 𝘂𝗶𝘁 builds this out going down the road. So if you want more information on how that ship works and the loop for it, you can check out the other content creators' videos on it. We have not picked up that ship on this channel. We don't plan on doing it because it does not serve our purpose of being friendly to the free-to-play and the light spending community. The Mantis is not the real issue here anyways. Moving on to Strike Team 𝘂𝗵𝘁 specifically. Those Strike Team officers, they have nuked the previous PvP meta. Many of those officers that you were building over the course of the last however long you've been playing the game are pretty much neutered right out of the gate because of specifically Strike Team 𝘂𝗵𝘁. There are screenshots circulating around of people with like Newtons blowing up 𝘂𝗶𝘁s or tier 6 augers taking on completely maxed out enterprises. Yes, you do have the battle triangle in your favor, but you usually wouldn't be able to go ahead and beat some of these ships as handily as you can do with Strike Team 𝘂𝗵𝘁 specifically. They're currently allowing people that have battleships to punch way ahead of what they would have been able to do, take out players that are much stronger than what they would have had any ability to fight previously. And that is a giant problem for anybody who has not and will not purchase these officers. Pretty much this month, you're just getting stomped no matter what you do, no matter how much money you have spent on the game, no matter how much time you've invested up to this point. If you don't have these officers, you're in a really bad situation. That's what has many people upset about the current state of Star Trek Fleet Command. Strike Team 𝘂𝗵𝘁 is the big piece of this. She's the one that is basically negating the shields of enemy players as long as you're on a battleship. A lot of people are using your 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵 to go ahead and get a little bit more out of that, because Pike will increase the effectiveness of that ability that goes ahead and reduces the mitigation of the shield of an enemy player. That's a pretty big deal. Right now, it looks like you can pick her up in the store for about $50. That is not unheard of. That's really the way that it usually works when a new officer is released. This is not really any different than that. But that is about the threshold of what we would pick up purchasing on the channel, and we're going to stand with the greater Star Trek Fleet Command community, the free-to-play light spender players here, and not go ahead and use any money to pick her up. If we can go ahead and source her through the ARC, through any of the auction events, if we're capable of doing that this month, then maybe we will get our hands on her at some point in time. But we are not going to be picking her up with money and joining the elites that have her this month. But I do think that many people are not taking into consideration the bigger picture here. That is why we are going ahead and tossing this video out there. This might actually be a good thing for the game going forward, and we'll get into that in 1 minute. First off, if you're enjoying this video at all, leave it a like, please. It really helps the channel tremendously. Subscribe if you've not done so already to check out a lot of the Star Trek Fleet Command and other gaming content that we put out here. Comment down below on anything that you feel like we haven't addressed at this point in the game, or just to go ahead and rant a little bit on how you're feeling about the game right now. It's totally okay to not feel good about the game that we're all playing at this current point in time, because it is kind of a mess at this particular moment. Go ahead and share this video with your friends, alliance mates, etc. Anybody you feel like could benefit from it as well. If you do want to financially support what we're doing here, we do take PayPal donations. It's in the description below. You can join the channel for some interesting perks. You'll get a badge next to your name that will call out your comments from other people's comments so we can get to you a little faster. You will get access to emojis to use in the channel and on our live streams. And if you are at the $20 or higher level, what we call the Legendary Jarl, then you'll actually have early access to the videos once we have them uploaded. As long as it doesn't breach an NDA, if we do sign one at some point in time, you will have access to that video ahead of the greater Star Trek Fleet Command community. Speaking of those live streams, we do run them every Friday from about 9 p.m. until about 12 a.m. Eastern. There is one tonight, actually, if you want to come check it out. We'll be discussing things going on in Star Trek Fleet Command and checking out some other games. So those are really fun for the community. It's great to hang out face-to-face with the members of the community. Sometimes we vent what we don't like about Star Trek Fleet Command like we'll do right now. Other times we try to prioritize, strategize, and generally just help each other in the community. I think we can use a lot of that right now. So remember that as of today, August 12th, 2022, I have not officially been approached to sign an NDA when I say what I'm about to say here. And that is that we've got Deep Space Nine right around the corner. Back in October of 2021, which is 10 months ago now, on that roadmap, Deep Space Nine and Alliance starbases were teased. I don't know of anything that has been teased that far out to the players of Star Trek Fleet Command since the game was created at this point in time. So it is extremely likely that September 2022, or at the very least October, will begin our Deep Space Nine arc, or possibly arcs. Now, I'm not saying you should just hold out in the game just to wait for Deep Space Nine to roll around. Absolutely, that is not a good reason to stick around to the game just because Deep Space Nine is coming. However, I think that what people are not taking into consideration with the latest shakeup of the game, this Strange New Worlds Part 3, is that if Deep Space Nine is coming next month, then it would absolutely shake up the meta anyways. It would shake up pretty much everything that we're doing. If it's done correctly anyways, it will shake up the meta of this game. So we're really only getting this ripple that we're feeling in the community maybe a month or two ahead of how it should be happening anyways if they are going to Deep Space Nine. Now, I also bring that up because a Cisco and Defiant themed strike team type crew would totally make sense to come in here and help balance the meta that we're dealing with right now. It's not the fact that the meta has shifted that is as big of a problem as it's really unbalanced right now. Battleships are king at the moment. But just like with almost everything 𝗂𝗶𝘁 puts in the game, the exceptions pretty much being to Chin. There's not really anything that you can use for level 52 and beyond hostiles, and she's the only energy weapon person that you have. At least Talon has Kath now, even though Kath isn't that easy to source. And there's no Strange New Worlds survey officer yet, since Una was supposed to be, but they changed her to impulse speed, so I don't know why people are that upset they don't have her anyways. But most things that 𝗂𝗶𝘁 releases in the game are relatively balanced, semi-balanced, at least within a couple months or so. So I think that people just looking at the fact that this is completely mixing up the entire game are only looking at part of the picture here. So I made that statement previously that people are like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the game, and I think that that's a very healthy place for people to be right now. If Deep Space Nine comes out within a month or two, and it does help round out this new meta, awesome. The game needs to be updated, refreshed. It needs to be more friendly to people who haven't been building those officers for the last 3 or so years, people who just started playing the game, or people who have just recently come into it within a year or so that have not had the ability to pour into those much smaller pool of officers that people have had to deal with up until now. At the current rate, there's like 3 or 4 new officers a month right now. So if you started the game a year ago, then you have to deal with 36, 48, something like that, new officers realistically over what people who had been playing the game before then have dealt with. You've got either new crews to deal with, new officers that you have to build. It's not like the ultra recruit tokens and things like that are raining down from the sky, and even if they are, your chance to pull a specific officer and work on them, not super high. And there's not that much put into the transporter pattern store. Hopefully that changes down the road relatively soon, that you will be able to get more of these officers in the transporter pattern store, even if they're more expensive. But looking at the state of the game, if Deep Space Nine either does not come out within the next month or so, or if it does come out and doesn't start to correct this meta the way that it is right now, then probably it is a good time to go ahead and look for another game to find your enjoyment out of, at least until this game is fixed. And the way this game is kind of conceptualized and built, the model for it, if you are away from the game for a month or two and you haven't put up a big shield, you're really coming back to shambles. So 𝗂𝗶𝘁, if they don't go ahead and make a real effort to fix this pretty quickly, or heavily incentivize people to return to the game if they do leave because of the state of the game, it's really not going to be good for Star Trek Fleet Command as a whole. Hopefully 𝗂𝗶𝘁's not that short-sighted. I know that there are a lot of opinions on them as a company, but I think at the end of the day, we all know that they do want to make money, and hopefully this is just a piece of what we're seeing that will roll out over the next several months, and we need to keep that in mind, at least when we are approaching the game currently. Any giant change to the meta is always going to be painful to the player base, especially those who are late to adopt it. However, in pretty much every game that you play for any length of time, the meta will shift, sometimes way more rapidly than what we're seeing right now. So it's not really a reason to panic and stop playing the game entirely, unless you're just not enjoying it in any capacity and don't believe that you will anymore, in which case that's probably why you downloaded the game to begin with, is to relax and enjoy the community. So maybe you do need to go find something else. I'm not trying to tell you that you should stay and put in a bunch of work in something you don't like. I will briefly address the Mantis sourcing as well. I want to look at ships like the 𝗂𝗶𝘁 and the 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗄, things like that a player that is motivated to do so within about a 3 to 4 month period for the 𝗂𝗶𝘁, about, 10 weeks or so for the 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗄, you can pick up those ships if you are so inclined. Not a huge deal there. So usually within 3 to 4 months of a ship being released in a premium capacity, there is some way to go ahead and source it, keeping in mind that it took 12.5 weeks for the 𝗂𝗶𝘁. You do have event stores and things like that that usually roll around and help you do so a little bit quicker. So the 𝗂𝗶𝘁, maybe you could start working on it. 𝘂𝗀𝗶𝘁𝗵 came out a month or two after the ship was released. So you're really looking at about 4 to 6 months after it came out before you get your hands on that. The 𝗂𝗲 is a little different. I'm a little salty about the 𝗂𝗲 because the normal 𝗂𝗲, I think I got my hands on it within about 3 or 4 months of playing the game. I've been playing for about 1.5 years at this point, building that 𝗂𝗲, of course, along the way, placing really high in the Latinum Rush for a while when I first got my hands on it to help build it a little bit quicker. And I'm still probably about 3 months out if I don't try to spend some of my event currency and things like that to max out a 𝗂𝗲 so that I can go ahead and scrap it for a 𝗂𝗲 finally. So I do think that that one's a little bit difficult to get our hands on. I don't think that's that big of a deal because that ship is not that game breaking to go ahead and get your hands on either. But I do want people to keep in mind that you won't have a free-to-play sourcing option for this Mantis for a little while, even though it has this new loop that is extremely incredible for a lot of people to go ahead and start getting into earlier. Don't expect to be able to pick up this ship for another 4 to 5, 6, whatever months from a free-to-play only standpoint. That might be unpopular, but that's just the way that the game has worked up to this point, and I don't think it'll be any different for a ship this important to the overall game. I do want you guys to go recognize all the hard work that 𝗂𝗏, Ultimate DJs, and 𝗂𝗀 have done for the community campaigning to fix the month of August up to this point, getting us more of the event currency for the free-to-play and light spending community. Once that starts happening in the game, you do have them to thank, so I do encourage you to go show them some love. And because they have worked so hard to fix the event store for us, you might want to go ahead and consider checking out our event store priorities that we recently shot not that long ago, especially those of you that are free to play and light spenders that won't have access to that much currency even if it was free flowing to go ahead and try to build your account. And I will say we've had a lot of great engagement from the community just like usual, so check the comments on that video as well to get more perspective on what other people think you should be spending that event currency on. Also, I want to take a moment to shout out to all the people who have supported the channel that have allowed us to grow to where we are today. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Financially support us through those links as we mentioned previously if you are willing and able. Choose to live, my friends, and we will see you again soon.